Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cosmic Perspective. On this episode, I kind of just want to speak from the heart. So this is going to be just a little solo podcast here, no guests for this week. But I'm hoping that I can resonate with some people, and I hope that this one can serve as kind of an inspiration because it's something that I've been going through lately, kind of battling the internal expectations that you have for yourself and what you know about who you are, and then the external expectations of other people, right? Because I guess the thing that really spawned this off is just, everybody gets self-conscious, right? So everybody has those moments where you're sitting there and you're thinking, you're like, well, what do people think of me? What is their perspective? Like, what are they thinking about who I am and how am I presenting myself, and of the snippets that I'm showing people? Like, is that truly giving somebody a good idea of my character, or is it ending up misleading them because of the lack of context for the reasons behind what we do, right? So you might be, I don't know if I even have an example, but just like think about situations where, you might have a bad day or something, and somebody catches you in that bad day, and like their whole view of you, if that was the only moment that they ever saw you, would be that you're an asshole or something. And I think it's like kind of the same thing, even with people right? You decide you want to talk about something, or they catch you in a moment that's either a high or a low. Even the high can be misinterpreted by people. And that's just kind of something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is just how do I come to grips with what people are going to assume about me based on my appearance, based on the way I talk, and then, versus who I actually am, and how clearly does that come through, and should I be trying to project it more, or, and that's kind of the battle that I've been coming up with. And I think the answer that I've come to for myself is to just be authentic, to just be me, like, why try to even over project who you think you are, when if you truly are just being who you are, it kind of doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter how they're interpreting you, or if they misunderstand, then that's on them. And I mean, that doesn't mean that, you shouldn't understand how you're coming off. I mean, you should certainly be thinking about that, right? But at the same time, if you lived your whole life putting all these limitations on yourself based on other people's perceptions, then, I mean, you'd be living in a shell of yourself. And that's something that I think I've been just coming to grips with in my mind, is just truly owning myself, truly owning who I am, all the eccentricities that come with that, all the weirdness and the goofy voices, and, my political like enragement at the establishment and stuff like that. Like, those things are all what make me who I am. And if I run away from that, or if I try to hide it or mute it in some way, then I'm not being me. And I think that's not being fair to anybody. It's not being fair to myself, first and foremost. And I think that matters probably more than anything. But then it's also not being fair to the other people. I mean, if you're just constantly being someone else for someone else because you know that that's who they expect you to be, then at a certain point that person becomes you. And that person isn't actually your true you, or at least your best you. And I feel like to be your best you have to just take those natural inclinations and eccentricities and embrace them. And I mean, I think once you realize that, you kind of remove some of those limits that I think a lot of people put on themselves. It's societal pressure, right? You don't want a bunch of people to sit there and just judge you all the time and get the wrong idea. There are a lot of things that I do that, without nuance and context of understanding, especially with, propaganda and misinformation out there, it certainly could be misinterpreted. And I know that, and I try to be mindful of how it could be misinterpreted, but there's a certain point where then that starts hindering my true ability to express it. And, so I briefly touched on psychedelics in the last podcast, and that's something that I think is a perfect example of it, because there are people that misuse psychedelics, and there are people that give it the bad name that it has. But then there are also people who are really thoughtful and really use these things as, meditative tools or spiritual awakenings, or, just education, right? Just thinking about the ways that it brings out this inner you that is often suppressed. And it could be suppressed for various reasons. It could be suppressed because you're suppressing it. It could be suppressed because society is. It could be suppressed because your friends are, or society, like family pressures. You don't want your family to be judging you. Like, obviously, I don't want that. I don't want my family to judge me for what I do. But at the same time, if I'm not living my truth and I'm not embracing who that person is, then they're only seeing a facade anyway. And if they only like a facade and a non-real version of myself, then what's the point? What's the point of going through it? You're faking it. And that's kind of what I think I've been dealing with. Because obviously when you start putting your stuff out on the internet, there's always that chance that somebody's gonna hear it. They're gonna take it out of context and they're gonna completely misrepresent you. And the way that I was looking at it is that if the piece of information about the fact that I like to occasionally use psychedelics, but I by no means, it's not like I'm tripping every day, guys. I'm pretty reasonable about how I use it, right? If that piece of information suddenly nullifies my entire existence, it suddenly completely reverses all the decisions I've ever made, all the good things I've ever done to people, then those are people that I kind of don't care what their opinion is, right? I don't value your opinion anymore because then you're not taking any nuance. And I feel like that's where I'm at now. It's just understanding that, you know what, like it or not, this is who I am. There are things that I really like about my personality. There's things that obviously I want to work on. I think everybody has that. And I think it's embracing the things you really like and working on the things you don't. And some things are probably going to be, I don't want to say not able to change, but certainly just are so deeply ingrained in who you are that it's just hard to naturally fight that tendency all the time. And maybe mindfulness and meditation can help and bring your awareness so that you're not just doing that. But at the same time, there's some things that's just like, oh, that's you. That's part of you. Good or bad, some traits are just going to be like in your DNA. And I think you can do your best to mitigate the bad ones, but there's probably only so much you can do for some of those things. But I feel like if you embrace the inner genius, the inner creative entity that's in all of us. We all have this thing. Everybody can tap into it, and everybody has different versions of it, but it's all there for you. It's just a matter of figuring out the key that unlocks yourself. And I've used the metaphor to explain to people when I would explain about like what psychedelics did for me is it basically showed me a key that I already had the key, but I didn't know where that key was, right? It's like I lost the key in my mind or in my body, and psychedelics pointed me in the direction of the key and even showed me the door that key opens. The rest was all me. Right? Yeah, I feel like I want to make it clear that psychedelics are not something that just gives you the answers, right? This requires a lot of work on your part. And most of the work done is after the trip, after the journey. And if you're going to use them, understand that the trip is a way for you to get outside of yourself and to see from this outside perspective, to really see something for maybe what it is. And when you take that outside view, you then have to apply it in your sober state and in your life. And I think integration is probably one of the most important parts about the psychedelic experience. It's not the actual journey. It's the knowledge that you take with you afterwards that you then apply to make actual changes in your life, to create new loops, to break old loops and create new loops. And that's kind of something that I wanted to make sure I clarified in this one, because I know I only lightly touched on it, and I don't want to make this whole episode about psychedelics in particular, because it's not. It's just more about yourself and just understanding who that person is. And I think a lot of people run from that. A lot of people do kind of not want to know exactly who they really are, right? They kind of like the narrative that they've been told, that they telling themselves, and that other people tend to project onto you based on their perception of who you are. But what you have to understand, and I think a lot of people do understand it fundamentally, is that only you really know yourself. Only you have all the information that you have about your perspective and your experiences and your life. And you're the only one who can really judge that. So that's just something that I know I felt like I needed to cover, because I just want to be honest. I want to be able to feel like I can say what I actually mean, to say what I really feel, and to be authentic. I don't want this to feel like that I'm some persona. I'm not a perfect person. I like to think I'm a pretty good motivational person, right? I know how to say the right thing sometimes when people ask me for advice, but that by no means means that I'm like some amazing expert at taking the advice myself. Like many people, I'm great at giving it, kind of shitty at taking it, but that's okay. That's like part of the human experience. And if you ever find a perfect human being, let me know, because I've yet to meet one. So one of the things that I think was really related to that is this idea that by doing this, by awakening yourself and affecting your local environment, that you can take this newfound perspective, this new impact, start impacting the people around you, impacting your local friend group at first, then eventually branch out to your community and your family. And if you can take that domino effect of this just positive thinking, doing the right thing, trying to help people, trying to get your highs from helping people, that actually is like one of the easier ways to get a natural high, is to just, try giving somebody something that really makes their day. Tell me that doesn't make you feel better than anything else in the world. I mean, really, it's the truest, most purest form of happiness, I feel like, is just giving somebody else happiness, because it ends up giving you happiness too. So even if you want to look at it from a selfish perspective, giving somebody else a reason to be happy ends up making you just as happy, if not happier than them. So I feel like if we can start this movement, and I don't know, I don't even want to give it a name, but I feel like sometimes giving it a name maybe helps trend it. But just this movement of like positivity, of genuinely just being like, you know what? Fuck all the bullshit that's happening in the government. Fuck all the bullshit that's happening at work or at all this other stuff. I'm going to work on me. I'm going to fix me. And the second that I'm fixed, I'm going to try to fix the people around me. And I feel like it's such an obvious thing, and I'm not saying anything new, but it really makes sense when you think about it. Because once you fix yourself and you're right, there's nothing stopping you from fixing somebody else. There really isn't. I mean, it's like a self-actualized person is a much better teacher to help other people, because they don't have to worry about fixing themselves. And we're always a work in progress. So this by no means means like you hit some magical bar and you're like, I'm fixed, I'm done. It doesn't work like that. You'll always be working on yourself. But there certainly is a point where you're like, I'm pretty well figured out, and I handle my day-to-day challenges pretty well, and I understand my emotions, and I deal with them properly. That doesn't mean you live a perfect life. It does not mean you're always happy. But it certainly is a point of like knowing that whatever's thrown at you, you will be able to handle, because you know the best way to recover. You've learned your own personality, your own way of dealing with things, and you just use that. And I think that point of view, that level that you reach, then makes it so much easier to bring other people up to it, because other people will see you, and they see you in your day-to-day life, and you might not even notice it as much as they do, because you're with yourself all the time. But for the people that you're only seeing, once every couple of weeks or something, like they're going to start noticing like, damn, dude, you seem happier. What's going on with you? And I know that really happened to me once I started making my big change and really started like evolving who I was as a person, became a lot happier on a day-to-day basis. By no means like permanently happy, but certainly at a level where I was very satisfied with my general progression. People started noticing. People were like, oh, you're kind of like glowing almost, like you seem like you're in a good zone. And it's because I was. And even though you can only sit in that spot, temporarily, you can't always be in that zone. But even when you're struggling, like I said in the Flow podcast, struggle better. Know that you're struggling, understand it, figure out what's the root cause of it, and then approach it and tackle it. And when you're your authentic self and you don't have to hide who you are, it's easier to address those things, because you truly know that person, that inner person inside you, the ego. You understand that ego, and you understand its power that it has over you and the biases that come with it. And if you're not being yourself, then you can't even identify the problem, because you're looking at a facade. It's like looking at a mask and trying to figure out what's wrong with your face. You can't do it, right? You don't know what's wrong with your face if it's covered with a mask. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people go through, is that there's this mask that we all have to put on for other people. And of course, putting a mask on is useful. This is by no means like you shouldn't not use some masks every once in a while. There's some masks where, context is king. Know know when you can be yourself and when you got to be in work mode and what have you. But knowing that nuance and understanding like when you really need to start being you and when the mask needs to come off. And I think more people need to take the mask off, self included. And that's kind of where I'm at in my own life, and where I think a lot of people would really benefit is if they got to that point. And I don't think it happens overnight. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, how do I even begin? I don't know. I don't have the answer for you, right? I don't know where you begin. You have to figure out where your trigger points are, where the linchpin of the mask is, and how to pull it out safely so that the whole thing doesn't collapse in on you, because that's usually how bad trips happen. You don't want that, but you want to be able to take that mask off and reveal yourself to other people. And I promise, the more that you're radically open, the more you're authentic, the more real interactions you get, the cooler people you meet, the more positive energies you find. I do to some degree believe in the law of attraction, but not in the sense that it's really a law. It's just more of like a probabilities thing, right? Where if you're nicer to people, there's just a good chance that you're going to meet other nice people. Like obviously you're still going to run into assholes, but if you're an asshole all the time, then you're probably only going to hang around assholes. And I know we covered that in the podcast with Bill, but I really think that point needs to be driven home, is just understanding that like you really do get what you put out. So if you're constantly putting out positive energy, other positive people are going to just want to hang around you. I know when I meet somebody else who I feel like recharges my batteries, so to speak, I want to be around them all the time, because I'm like, yeah, you keep inspiring me, dude. And when I got like a crew of people that I feel like are just really just like dope ass people. I just love those guys. I love them. Guys and girls. I don't mean to sound like I was about to say just guys. I really love them. They're just awesome human beings. And those people, I feel confident that I can reach out to when I'm in trouble. And I feel like they got my back no matter where they are. Half those people don't live in the same state as me anymore. And knowing that I have those people and knowing that I have that authentic group to recharge my batteries, it ends up keeping this like perpetual motion. Like you can't be stopped when you have everything around you feeding into this positive reinforcement. And that's what I think is so important about these feedback loops and being yourself, is like when you're yourself, you're more likely to find those people that really are going to click with you, not click with your mask, not click with this facade that you're putting up so that they like you. No, be your fucking self. Take that and use that same energy to recharge other people's batteries, because I promise they'll recharge it back. It's like paying it forward. It will come back to you. It really does. There's no scientific law or fact or anything that really backs it up, as much as it's kind of like a personal truth that it's going to work out. And it's worked out for me. I know I have a lot of privileges that are probably the reason why it's easier. I don't deny those. You'll never hear me deny white privilege or even just male privilege, right? Just being a male in our male-dominated society. Obviously, I know that, but I try to do my best to take that privilege and to help people. And I'm not doing it for social brownie points. I'm really not. I just genuinely get pleasure out of helping people. Like if I can help awaken somebody's inner creative genius, I don't need credit. I just want them to be their self. I want them to be their best version. And in the end, we'll all benefit from that. The more people that we have in the world being themselves and being the best versions of themselves, the better world we're going to live in. We don't need 100% of society to be fixed to fix society. We really don't. And if you look at the 1% that controls the entire planet right now, where they're being shitty, right? They're just hoarding all the wealth. They're not letting anybody have it. Those people have massive control over the planet. That's only 1% of the population. Imagine if we had 20%, just 20%. This is not even a high number. 20% of the world that's really just like empathetic, doing what's best for themselves and their community, and really cares about other human beings. I guarantee you that 20% is more powerful than that 1% every single time. And I really think we can do it. I think now is the time. Like I talk about the revolution a lot with people that know me. And the revolution, I don't envision as a violent thing, right? I really do think we can just kind of change the thought patterns and ideas of people so that the masses will then follow the newfound ideology that allows people to be better people. And there isn't a perfect version of that. I don't have a book for you. I don't have rules or anything that you're supposed to follow. It's just this general guideline of just try to be a better person. Try to be the best version of you. Try to reinforce good behaviors in yourself, and that will then reflect upon your interactions with other people, thus hopefully reinforcing their behavior to then cause this domino effect. I mean, just imagine if it worked like where 10% of the interactions that you have with people are successful in converting them to being positive people in the long run. 10%, and that's probably a generous number, but let's just say 10%. Imagine you run into, on average, at least 20 or 30 people a day. That's a pretty good, 2 or 3 people. That's not bad, right? 2 or 3 people a day, and then they're doing it then, and then they get 2 or 3 people a day. It doesn't take long before that is reaching the majority of the population. It really doesn't. It's like you're essentially creating, I like to think of them as beacons of light. So imagine we're on a coast, and you're a lighthouse on the coast, and there's a ton of ships lost at sea. These are people that just don't have a purpose. They're kind of wandering. They're not sure what they need to do with their life. They don't have good guidance. They don't have good people around them. You can be the light to show them the shore, right? The shore could be the metaphorical promised land, this world where people all live better. It's a little bit closer to utopia. I don't imagine utopia being a reality as much as just something, that aims to be utopian. And you can be the person that guides them. And then once you brought them to shore, then they can go to another part of the shore or another part of the land and be a lighthouse there. And then they find more people at sea in a different location that reach an area that you can't reach. I'm going to reach an audience that some people can't reach. I'm also not going to be able to reach audiences that other people can reach. So I don't expect to do it all. This isn't a solo thing. This is for everyone. I want everyone to be a part of this revolution. And this revolution is the revolution inside ourselves. And I mean, I know J. Cole, he has this song where it's called High for Hours. But it's funny because it's not really about being high for hours. The whole thing is kind of about like the revolution. It's like the only real revolution happens right inside of you. And I really do believe that, is that if we all have this internal revolution, this like awakening, and I think we're coming to it. I think this is going to be the second renaissance. And I think you can already start seeing it in the shift in music, right? There's a lot of musicians that are really starting to make a statement and really start to make some quality content. And I'd like to see more and more of that, where this content isn't just to sell you bullshit, to sell you an idea, to sell you dreams that you'll never have. This is to sell you something real, to sell you something authentic, to cut through the bullshit that we're dealt with on a day-to-day basis with clickbaity titles and all these headlines that are meant to skew you to thinking the world's worse than it is. It's not. And of course, we still have tragedies. These shootings are awful. We need to do something to stop. We can't do nothing. It's obviously not working. So, I mean, this is not to say that, the world will suddenly become perfect if we do this, but God damn it, if we don't try, then we're really fucked. And I really think that we can do it. I really think we can turn it around. And I think a lot of the things that we're doing and fucking up this planet, I think it's reversible. But without a collective of all the people in the world, not just America, but all the people in the world really coming together and making a really concerted effort to protect the environment, to protect their ecosystem, to bring it and restore it back to equilibrium, then it's not going to happen. And unfortunately, a lot of people need real, tangible evidence to feel the need to change it. Like, it has to affect them personally. And I understand, sometimes it does feel like empathy rarely extends outside of our own personal sphere of influence. But I think it doesn't have to be. So for me, psychedelics were a way that made me a more empathetic person. I would like to also combine it with meditation because I think it also makes you more thoughtful and more mindful. But there are other ways. Other people get it in religion. I think when religion's not used to put down other people, it is great, right? It gives people purpose. It gives them a reason to be nice to other people. Like, hey, man, more power to you. I'm never going to say you can't practice your religion. As long as you're taking the good parts out of it and saying, this is what I want to follow, then take it, man. Just don't take it so literally. But really, I really think that we can all become this super organism. And this isn't a one world order or new world order, a one world government type thing. That's not even what I mean, because I still think we work best locally as communities and tribes. That's how we evolved. But if we can find a way where we work better and more in unison with each other, and we get more in tune with the environment and the frequency of the universe, I really think we can do it. And I think we're so close. There's a lot of people starting to wake up. And, cue the hashtag stay woke memes. But really, I really do believe that we can do it. So I guess the thing that I really want to leave you at is just be yourself. Don't apologize for it. Don't be an asshole because of it. Respect others and respect their right to disagree. But do your best to put your best foot forward in every day that you exist on this planet. And then when you die, you'll have no regrets. You'll live the best life that you possibly can live. And I feel like you can't fault yourself if you gave it your best. So keep plugging away, people. I know it's hard. Life is hard out there. The system and the sick society that it seems that we live in, it's going to pressure you to go against this. You might have a temporary boost where you feel the words that I'm saying, you feel the inspiration. You're like, yeah, I get it. I totally am with you, dude. And then something will come and derail you. Don't let it derail you. That is the resistance. It's being clever. It's trying to trick you into thinking, oh, yeah, you believe that, but here, this is something that proves otherwise. But it's the persistence and the ability to fight back against those urges, against those things that drive you to complacency. Those are the things that end up pushing you to ascend beyond it. And then when your inner world is completely, think of it as like being your inner world is being like perfectly in sync, right? You're in flow almost, without actually being flow. When you have that inner world and it's all in homeostasis, you're all good. Nothing in the outer world can really touch you. Really nothing. Obviously you can get hurt. You can get physically harmed. People can do whatever. But if you're being you, you're embracing that, nothing can touch you. So with that, I'll leave you guys, and I will see you next week.